Good day, everyone. James Hicks here from Hicks New Media. Welcome to another episode of the Digital Collective. It is November 17th. I'm back in the mainland. I'm glad that all the buttons that I pushed worked. It's been about 2 weeks since I've done this, so I'm glad that it's like riding a bike and being able to get back into the swing of things. I'm not going to beat around the bush and I'm going to be cognizant of time. Today, I have Larry O'Connor with me today. He is I almost don't need to do an introduction because a lot of folks in the technology world know who this guy is. He's the founder and CEO of Other World Computing, OWC. Larry started OWC back in the late 80s. I think 88 was the year. And since then, his companies, digital properties have really been one of the go-to resources for all things peripherals, all things storage, memory, and various other upgrades and equipment within the Mac ecosystem. Heck, I think the first thing I was trying to think about this, the first thing that actually I may have bought from OWC or Mac sales was some RAM for my old PowerBook G4, a 17-inch MacBook. So a lot of folks, old school, will probably remember that. I'm gonna bring Larry on. We're gonna talk about what's going on with the company in terms of products, announcements, services, and things of that. Talk a little bit about protocols in terms of Thunderbolt 3 versus Thunderbolt 4, what that means, and how OWC, Mac Sales, and all the other properties within the organization are addressing those connectivity needs for users. So, that being said, let me bring on Mr. Larry O'Connor. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on, James. Really appreciate it. Great to be here and talking to you.
No worries, sir. No, I mean, again, flashing back, right? Again, the old 17-inch MacBook G4. Again, I swear, I lugged that thing around like it was, you know, I don't know, it was huge, but it was definitely I'm gonna call it a status symbol. But the first thing that I did when I got it was did the upgrade, and you were the first person that I bought some upgrades for at the old Mac World conference in Moscone Center, where I picked it up from the booth. So those days are gone, but hopefully they come back eventually soon, right?
We're hoping. I mean, NAB is going to be next year. Yeah, I'm not a CES is not really. Thought I say it's kind of a different kind of show, but
Yeah,
NAB NAM is a fantastic show. It has that feeling of Macworld, but I do miss the Macworld shows.
that's
Like
true.
yourself.
That's true. Now I'm actually going to be at CES this year. Looking forward to it. Kind of nervous because again we've been on hiatus for about 15 months in the world, but it's going to be an interesting experience for sure. I tell you what, let me backtrack a little bit. I gave kind of the high level elevator pitch, and I'd like for if you could tell the folks that are listening, watching, and hearing who Larry O'Connor is and who and what OWC is from a corporate perspective, so they can get kind of an understanding of what that means as well.
Sure. I mean, how to say, I'm the founder and CEO of Other World Computing. I consider myself a technologist, space buff. I also have a family with 4 kids, and really been fortunate to be able to build a company that today spans the globe and is out providing solutions that we certainly believe everybody needs. And as an organization, OWC is very customer focused. I mean, we know we're here for our customers. We're here because of our customers, and the solutions have always been customer driven. Today we still support Macs and some PCs, but mainly Macs. Going back 2 decades plus, as well as all the latest Macs, and that's with memory, solid state drives, other internal service components. We've got solutions that keep these systems going, provide aftermarket means to upgrade service and keep them rolling strong. And the other, to say, pillar corner, we provide extremely high performance external storage, everything from single drive up to multi-drive arrays, direct attached, all the way up to enterprise storage. So pretty much everything in between. I mean, people use our solutions, everything from backup to major motion, picture, television, audio production, and something we've always worked really hard to do. And this is kind of an interesting. Listen to the conference. People talk about prosumer. We've really worked to bring enterprise class, professional class product, you know, into the market where everybody has access to it. Whether you're at home doing photography editing and music or video, you have a drone. I mean, you're doing, they say the go cams, whatnot,
Yeah.
the heroes, all these, all the way up to, again, you're working with the Reds or Black Magic or areas, even higher end cameras. Our solutions are built for everybody, and we really work to put them out in a way that everybody has access to them. Even a decade ago, we had the first rate buy that was under $1,000 with high capacity for people with big photography libraries. Doesn't sound like anything crazy today, but it was huge. I mean, we cut the cost by about 75% versus anything else out there, and there was a big demand and a big need for it. It's always about performance and quality, reliability, and solutions that you can trust. And the last I put out there, I talk about hardware a lot. Beyond the stores, we also have the docks for connectivity and different various adapters for Thunderbolt. But going back to storage, and actually everything that we do, software is really an underpinning that makes
Mm.
everything we do possible. And the software solutions that we now incorporate with our hardware, honestly, they're killer. And I mean, this is software. To talk about storage, software in particular, that not only drives really high performance from all these internal, external storage devices, but also makes sure that your data is safe. You really honestly can't trust hardware detection, certainly not unless you go up to really expensive enterprise level product out there that's many, how do I say, multiples more than what the product I'm talking about
Right.
costs today. But these solutions are monitoring your drive's health, making sure data is flowing right, and way before a drive fails, way before a smart tells you there's something wrong, which is at that point it's too late. You're already seeing crashes. You may
Right.
already have corruption. Our stuff, our software aid will tell you there's a drive that should be replaced. And I love telling this story, and I'll stop talking for a bit.
Now, look, you are the one that's here, and I see folks that are joining from various platforms. I see Miss Eileen Smith here, and she is also a technologist who knows what's going on. I want to backtrack a little bit though, and talk a little bit in context about, and I kind of talked about this in the opening, the digital properties, the digital presences, right? So it's not just OWC. Then there's Max Sales, there's OWC Digital, there's Soft Rate. So kind of the umbrella of the overall organization. If you can kind of go into that, so folks know that all of these entities are part of OWC, if you don't mind.
Sure. Well, we are relaunching, most of this under OWC.com.
Okay.
Over the past few years, we have Mac Drive, we have soft rate, OWC Digital we put online is to really provide a good place to support our channel that was started a few years ago. But OWC.com will bring everything together. LumaForge is part of the family. You know, we also took on Argest and Brew from the Tolis Group. So Akidio was an acquisition a few years ago. We brought a lot of great technologies together under OWC. These are things that we could take further or took our products further, our solutions further. Everything for the benefit of our customers. But software again drives all of our Surge devices. Mac Drive and that team have actually enabled us to take our Mac storage and make it very easy to interoperate between a Mac and a PC. In fact, software for Windows now lets you take any software volume from a Mac, pretty much any RAID volume from a Mac for that matter, and connect it right onto a Windows machine, which for certain
Hmm.
workflows is important. If the ingest is being done on a Mac and certain editing parts are being done on the Mac, but you need delivery to a PC. Software for PC for the read function doesn't cost anything. So now it's very, very easy for a customer, for a user, for whatever the need may be, to see that data go back and forth between a Mac and a PC without extra complication.
Okay.
Brew and Argest, I couldn't believe when I'd say the pandemic was a challenge. There's lots of obviously challenges in general, but Argest and the Brew archival software it's been a big piece of workflows for literally decades, and being able to bring them into the equation with our LTO and our LTO library offerings. I mean that's huge, and we have a lot more coming out along with Brew and Argest. You know, I can just go on and on and on and on, but
You're
we are going to make
definitely
it simpler. we're at the end of the day, we don't want to confuse and complicate with all these different units, but we've really built what I consider to be an amazing team of just some of the best people in the world when it comes to the hardware and the software, and that comes together to give our customers something that you know very few, if any, can offer.
That's true, and that should definitely be highlighted, right? And I don't want to gloss over that. The fact again that you've been around since '88, and again really been one of those go-to resources for all things and everything upgrades, especially from Mac perspective. But it's interesting to hear that you said you also have kind of cross-platform connectivity, right? So it's not just Apple/Mac. Functions and capabilities you have, you actually have something for the PC market and PC world as well. One other thing that you mentioned, I think again should not be kind of overlooked was the price points. Right, again, high quality gear, high quality support, uh, protection, and things of that nature. But you don't need to take out a loan to get one of your arrays or anything, right? Or one of your storage units. So talk a little bit about that, because I think that's really has been kind of a forefront in terms of the strategy for OWC, right? Just making sure that you have high quality gear for the consumer at a price point that actually can be afforded. And we're not going to necessarily mention any names of anything out there as well, but again, your gear is fantastic, right? And again, standing the test of time, and you've got folks that are giving reviews and giving high praise to it for all this period of time. Wanting to get you to talk on their streams because again we've got OWC here running within our environment. So I guess talk to us again, I guess, about your focus on the end consumer as opposed to always just those enterprise organizations or those enterprise shops as well.
The enterprise, and I'm not going to, I mean, enterprise customers are very, very important to us. I mean,
Mm.
it's honestly, it's really exciting. It's fun to see the projects that our gear gets used in. I mean, whether you go to the movies or, turn on the TV and see something that's like, our stuff was behind the scenes in that. It was involved in the editing, the VFX, whatever it may have been. Having said that, we build everything, for everybody at that level. It's just how we are. And, if you go back, 20 years, we had choices. I mean, there's absolute, niches we could have focused in on, built product, in smaller quantity, just gone after those customers. And I'm not saying it is necessarily a bad way to go, but the result ends up being, we build an awesome product and we put all our energy into, we set a price point based on, this is the budget for how many we're going to sell, and we have to sell it at X price to make it a go. And then it's not really a trap, but I mean, that's one way to go
Mm.
about it. We looked at the market and talked to our customers, understood what, customers wanted, and also understood at the time there really wasn't anything super affordable that met that customer need, customer want, and taking not so much a risk, but when you scale up from 100 to 1,000 or 10,000 units, and you can amortize that engineering, the certifications, everything that goes into bringing a product to market. Suddenly, I mean, the strategy is okay. We need to sell 100 way up here, or hey, let's build something where we're selling thousands and we can offer it to everybody. So it's still meeting the high end enterprise need, but it's also can be in a price point, for everybody, which means we can actually get it out and turn it. We've always been about making, we want to keep machines, maximize your machine in terms of its investment value and be able to deliver the most possible in other hardware as well. So we didn't build for a small niche. We really built these products so that everybody has access to them. And as long as, we continue reading, and we're not always 100% perfect, but as long as we're understanding our customers correctly, I think we've been really good about bringing products out that people do want. And in terms of the commitment, about the risk, however you want to note it,
Yeah.
we've been able to provide these solutions at the right price point so that, we maintain the volume, we maintain those goals, and we can keep these great products coming.
I love it. I love it. Folks, I see you jumping in. Look, if you got a question, put a Q in front of it. We've got Larry O'Connor here. This is a once in a lifetime type of an opportunity for us to get to the top of the mountain of OWC.
Oh,
So
I'm happy to come on again.
look, man, I've been following you ever since the day one at the beginning, right? So I'm thrilled that you're here. I want to I guess I'd be remiss if I didn't ask what the last 15 to 17 months or so has done, right, to OWC, and if that plus or the chip issue, right, has caused delays from a supply chain perspective or whatever the case may be. How is the company coming out of that, right? Coming out of, again, the pandemic era, and then what we're seeing from a supply chain perspective. I don't know if you have something that you may be able to share with us.
I say, we're probably less impacted than some others. I mean, we early on, I mean, we've long been, I'd say not quite a just in time. We stock a lot of the key components and we got ahead of the curve. We, early on when we saw things coming, we definitely were aggressive in making sure that we had components for what our forecasts were. The biggest challenges since then, of course, have been factory shutdowns, which delayed product. Other aspects, there might be 50 different critical components in a solution that can't be interchanged. We're taking care of the long lead time and the ones that shouldn't need to be covered, but we're still working with manufacturing sites on common components, and it's crazy. Some of the things that were, really have been keeping us up at night the last few weeks to make sure we can bring supply in and have supply, are where these factories that should have had their components months ago. I mean, the forecasts are in, the timing's all lined up. Well, they waited to the last minute. They didn't. They acted like it was 2019, and it's kind of a blind side because everything is flowing. We manufacture more than one solution. A lot of these facilities, and suddenly there's one item where they go, "Oh yeah, we need this component that isn't there." This is a PO from a year ago. This is all supposed to be on schedule. When did you order it? We've got the big stuff, the main stuff,
Yeah.
but it's one component can stop. It doesn't matter. You can have 29 out of 30, and everything is on hold. Or you're dealing it's really retraining some of the partners that we have, to keep that optionality. We had the push hard. We realized one company we work with didn't have. They also manage the tooling and the manufacture of the metal casing for us. Well, they didn't have a component. We had everything else, and they weren't sure. Based on when they thought they could get that component, they didn't. Our enclosure wasn't being manufactured. It's been interesting. Again, retraining and keeping everybody moving. And by and large, it's been good. The newer products have suffered the most. We didn't have forecasts, on some of these items because they didn't exist and they weren't even certified yet. And as we got to the end of even 2020, well into this fun scenario. And as we got things rolling with certification and started to put forecasts, and you have a lead time go from, and this is even from late last year, go from 24 weeks to 40 weeks to, in some cases, 80 weeks.
Wow.
Started 24, now it's 80 weeks today.
Wow.
We're pretty aggressive and active all over the place, trying to, I shouldn't say trying, I'd say pretty successfully sourcing what we need to keep things flowing. But it went from this being a real small part of the operation to a very time consuming portion just to keep everything in line and rolling. And it has hurt some of the popular products, docks in particular, both the newer docks and even our 14 port dock. It's been a challenge. Just there's so many components, so many different chipsets involved. It's just takes one, and again, the manufacturer, they're, nobody really, very few companies own their own fabs anymore.
Right.
So they're giving a lead time, and suddenly delivery is supposed to happen, and they come back. Their stuff didn't get built, didn't come off the line, and now they're saying it's another 20 weeks. And then
The
there's
bane of your existence. It sounds like, man, the bane of your existence.
It's fun, and never mind sea and everything else. And
Yeah.
you see on the news they're going to do all these things, extend the port hours in Los Angeles. I think that's wonderful, but it doesn't solve the problem of where those containers go after they unload them. You can see the ships. That's an easy thing you can see off the coast. Looking outside Long Beach and whatnot.
Right.
Actually, there's some funnies. Early Black Friday, go get on the beach and swim out.
Just swim out to the port, right? I mean, because all the stuff is there anyway, right? Oh my
Have them
gosh.
unload, but we don't have. There's a shortage of truck drive. Of trucks. It's not even truck drivers. California's got some laws that limit the number of truck drivers that can operate in the state. They have a shortage of chassis. There's a video of they had to move a chassis. There's a video of a truck dragging a chassis, and kind of with the joke, oh, that'll work with the short. You can't redo that on the highway.
Yeah.
But it's all sorts of just crazy things that have compounded and come together. So it should
and
get better,
that
but
piece
it's still
right
getting a
there,
little worse.
because a lot of us, we don't get that backstory, right? We hear what we hear from the news in terms of, yeah, there's shortages of stuff coming over from overseas. We've got ships out there in the port of Los Angeles, San Diego, New Orleans, things of that nature. But appreciate you for going behind the curtain, right, and telling us how it really affects businesses that we engage with, that we expect products and items from. So that behind the scenes piece is appreciative. Hopefully, all of this starts clearing up and working out before too long, and hopefully we don't have to swim out there and go get our own gear off of those boats.
Well, just know that everybody who's bringing product, if it's, we do as much as we can in North America. And I do look forward to the day when the supply chain, talk about just the component supply chain and everything that's involved with manufacturing electronics is, much stronger in the U.S.
Yeah.
Our memory and our solid state drives, the vast majority are built in North America, but the more complex, I say more complex electronics, it's not about the complexity of the actual design, it's the complexity of the BOM, how many different components.
Gotcha.
When you get to memory and solid state drives have a lot of components, but mostly the same. I mean, it's a simpler set of components versus a Thunderbolt solution or a dock that depends on multiple actual functional ICs. But anybody that's bringing product in right now is paying a huge premium, to have those goods on their shelf that they're coming from overseas. And even in the U.S., we're dealing with delay stuff that should take, call it, 2 or 3 days by truck. Sometimes it's 7 to 10 days. If it's a normal week plus route, it can be 3 weeks. There's all sorts of crazy things going on. Like I said, chassis. I mean, you got the truck, you got the truck driver. You don't have the chassis, which is needed, for the container to go on, and be pulled by the truck. It doesn't. You're not going to be moving that container too far.
I love it.
So all these things are there, and overseas. I mean, what used to be 3.5 weeks, from basically from port to our dock, on a container coming from overseas, is now 2 to 3 months.
Wow.
Depending.
Wow.
It's nuts. And they can blame the Suez Canal, they can blame all sorts of things, but ultimately, I say, how can you blame the canal back? That has some short-term impacts, but there was already a line of ships at the ports.
True.
So that's shorter for a little while.
That's
and then
true.
those ships rushed out and they were right back in line.
And we can keep talking about that all we want to. I love that deep dive discussion here. But let's get into some of this gear. And I saw Kevin Cox's statement there about he's loving his Thunderbolt 3 and Thunderbolt 4 docks. What is out there? Do you want to talk about the variation or differences between Thunderbolt 3 and Thunderbolt 4 and kind of the how that's utilized in the new M1 Max? Want to kind of go into that kind of discussion, or you want to talk specifically about what OWC has on the website for sale today about within those technologies?
We can cover a bit of all that. And I kind of want to put out there.
Man, I got my cup of coffee. I'm back in the United States. I am all yours right now, brother. I am all yours.
Thunderbolt 3 versus Thunderbolt 4 is probably one of the most confusing things, in terms of just conversation out there that didn't need to be. And I kind of would start by saying, more than anything else, Thunderbolt 4 was a needed marketing, line in the sand for the PC Windows side of the fence.
Interesting.
If you're a Mac user, which I am, and I believe the majority of your listeners are,
yeah.
If you have a Thunderbolt Type-C port on your Mac, whether it's a 2016 Mac or the latest Mac, it is fully featured. It'll support up to 2018 and later for 8K, but there's no barring the 8K.
Yeah.
Everything 26 and everything that has a Thunderbolt 3 port, a Thunderbolt /USB 4 port, or there is one caveat there I'll touch. You see, this is
now we're getting into the weeds, and I swear, before you even go in, I swear, I hope someone go wake up Sean Boyd, because I know he's probably twitching his thumbs right now, because we like to go kind of deep into that, and I know you had kind of that discussion when you were on his stream as well, not too long ago. But go ahead.
I'm trying to refine it because every time I try to make it, I think I'm going to make it simple. I overcomplicate it, but I think I'll do a better job today. At the end of the day, Apple did the full implementation of Thunderbolt 3 40 gigabit on every Mac that they ship with Thunderbolt 3.
Yeah.
Some of the earlier models, may have a 20 gigabit. I believe it's in the very first ones, 40 gigabit on one side and 20 gigabit on another side. But all the Intel Macs with Thunderbolt 3 supported two 4K displays, supported at least 1 port with 40 gigabits, supported all the different functions and capabilities that Thunderbolt 3 promised to offer. In 2018, Titan Ridge came out, which added support for 8K video. The systems after that technically all support 8K as well, and devices with a Thunderbolt a Titan Ridge chipset, which we don't need to go into the details of. 8K is, that's a whole other thing, but Apple did it right. And when Mac OS 11 came out, and this has happened before, when Titan Ridge came out in 2018, you had to upgrade to, I believe it was 1013, to have proper Titan Ridge support. Machines that are pre-1013 actually sort of work with Titan Ridge devices, but it's really, technically you need 1013 for that chipset to be enabled. Thunderbolt 4, really was something for the PC side to say, if you're going to be a PC with Thunderbolt 4, you have to do all these things that, you could have been doing prior. You have to support two 4K displays or a single 8K. You have to be 40 gigabits. You have to support power delivery. A lot of PCs with Thunderbolt 3 don't support power delivery. Things of that
That's
on a
huge.
Type-C port.
Yeah, that's huge.
So these things, Intel kind of cleaned up, their backyard, or their front yard for that matter, in kind of making it Thunderbolt simple on the PCs, because there's a lot of the Thunderbolt experience on a Mac is pretty darn exceptional.
Straightforward.
It's close to perfect as anything else I can imagine. The Thunderbolt experience on a PC is a disaster with Thunderbolt 3. It's very hit or miss. Some things that should work don't work depending on the PC because they don't allocate the PCIe lanes. The way there's no dedicated. The bottom line is it was a mess on the PC, and Thunderbolt 4 cleans that up. Now, Thunderbolt 4 also brought us a couple of new chipsets. Actually one in particular for devices, and that's Gaussian Ridge, which is what lets us do our Thunderbolt hub and our Thunderbolt 4 dock that also has the additional Thunderbolt ports. For years, we've wanted to be able to have more Thunderbolt ports on our Mac. And the OWC Thunderbolt hub and our Thunderbolt dock with 9 ports, 3 of which are downstream for Thunderbolt 3. I'm sorry, Thunderbolt 3 or 4, actually do that. This is the first chipset that supported that, and in order to be able to utilize this dock or the hub, you have to be on OS 11. Mac OS 11 adds support required for this new chipset. Even though it's a Thunderbolt 3, it doesn't matter if it's Thunderbolt 3, Thunderbolt 4. It's really immaterial in terms of, they say, it being 40 gigabit Thunderbolt. Again, Thunderbolt 4, kind of more of a marketing thing. That's why we didn't call this the Thunderbolt 4 dock. We kind of did a Thunderbolt dock and Thunderbolt hub, because if you're running it requires OS 11, but whether you plug it into an M1 Mac or a PC or an M1 Max Mac, everything works the same. Now, the only caveat, people ask, well, why did Apple call their M1 Mac Mini and MacBook Air and even the iMac 24-inch? Why is that not Thunderbolt 4? Why is it Thunderbolt /USB 4? I'm not going to get into the can of worms that USB 4 is, but Thunderbolt 4, when Intel announced it, does require that the computer support 2 4K displays off Thunderbolt port. The M1 is only able to support a single display via Thunderbolt. Intel Macs, again, going all the way back to 2016, do support 2 4K displays, but the M1s are kind of in that no man's land where they fortunately only support a single display, so they could not call that. They couldn't consider that they couldn't use the Thunderbolt 4 nomenclature. Does it change anything? No, it's Thunderbolt 40 gigabits. Yeah. All of these are Thunderbolt 40 gigabits. The biggest thing is you have the ability to add ports with a Thunderbolt 4 chipset, which Titan Ridge could have been called Thunderbolt 3.5 if they wanted to. That Titan Ridge, added all sorts of great capabilities, including 8K support. So it's again, Thunderbolt 4 kind of confuses things, but I should also call out, you don't want necessarily for high performance things. We do have a Thunderbolt 4 storage device coming out. That's a mini stack, which is just about to be announced. So this is live. I'm
there we
actually
go.
jumping the gun on a press release. It's not
I
hit
love
yet.
it.
But the mini stack will be our first Thunderbolt 4 storage device, customer's device that will have internal hard. It's got a hard drive, support for hard drive, an NVMe M.2 blade, and then in
Oh,
addition
wow.
to storage, it gives you 3 Thunderbolt ports, so you can add additional. It's basically a hub plus storage in one. Now, we're not going to do a whole big rollout of Thunderbolt 4 storage. I mean, people ask us. In fact, I remember when Thunderbolt 4 came out, it was first announced. Somebody's like, "Gosh, your Flex 8, which our Flex 8 is an amazing solution, or Thunderbolt Flex 8. It's. I mean, it is. I mean, it's. Okay. I have no problem saying it's awesome. I mean, check it out. I mean, it's like pretty much nothing else out there in terms of literally flexible. To just about any need configuration you could imagine. But to the point, it's a Thunderbolt 3 based solution. Yet customers are like, gosh, it's too bad that's not Thunderbolt 4. If it just waited till Thunderbolt 4 came out and you guys made it a Thunderbolt 4 device. It's like, well, we technically could do that today, but it would literally be 75% slower. And why is that? Again, because it's really Thunderbolt 3 and Thunderbolt 4, they're 40 gigabit. I mean, they are 40 gigabit interfaces, period. The Thunderbolt 4 chipsets are really only designed for use where either you have a relatively low bandwidth, how'd I say, device need, and next to that, you can add more Thunderbolt ports. So for adding a physical hard drive that's going to be less than 1,000 megs a second, or an NVMe because you want IOPS, and it's still an SSD has other benefits. Even if you're not going more than 1,000 megs a second, it's fine. But if you need high performance storage where you're pushing that nearly 3 gigabytes a second, and that our higher end storage pushes over, you can't do that with today's device chipsets, and you probably won't see device chipsets for a long time to do it because, well, I guess why? Titan Ridge, which is the Thunderbolt 3 chipset, in the Flex 8, in the Thunderbolt 8, in a lot of our storage solutions, already gives you all the capabilities that Thunderbolt is capable of, already maxes out that Thunderbolt capability. You can't add more Thunderbolt ports. You get a downstream port. You can't add additional ports, but the trade-off for that is you give up PCIe lanes. You can only have one lane to your
Got you.
actual peripheral device, and the other 3 lanes are needed for switching to support the making sure 40 gigabits continues to go downstream. So I hope that helps a bit. But
No, you know what? You are falling right in line with the mission of the digital collective, because the idea is to get into much more deeper technology conversations, and that's exactly what it is. I'm just going to say that I'm glad that I'm on Mac because Mac did it right the first time. Let me ask this question as well, and I'm not sure if it's relevant or if it matters, but we keep talking about Intel. Are there compatibility issues for your products with folks that are running AMD processors?
if they have Thunderbolt on their AMD was the first third-party, before Apple even, to incorporate their own Thunderbolt
Okay.
implementation on board. So the short answer is no.
Okay.
AMD is great. Again, AMD did a good job. They control it. There's not 50,000 different varieties out there with AMD, which helps. So kudos. I have nothing bad to say about AMD. And as far
Awesome.
as our products go, for literally, probably the last almost 2 decades now, we've supported our solutions on both Mac and PC. We build for Mac. There's definitely a higher threshold, a higher bar to support there. I mean, in terms of certifications and just even some of the compatibility. But what's top of game for Mac is even more incredible versus the PC product on the other side. So
Okay.
it's just, but everything you buy for your Mac from OWC is also PC compatible, which is
Good to know. That's good
we've
to know.
never really, it's not an area that we super promote, but again, we recognize people have mixed environments, mixed
Right.
workflows, and we're certainly we've worked really hard to do an even better job, especially with software. Making software universal. To have that multi-platform support in place.
Awesome. And I'm glad we're actually saying these out loud as opposed to just assuming them, especially for the listeners and the viewers, right? But again, that have those mixed environments. And I like the fact that you're kind of delineating between kind of an everyday user, regular consumer user, and then kind of creatives, right? Who kind of need that higher end performance, who need that higher end connectivity. Not everybody needs it, but a lot of folks want it. It's kind of that FOMO type of thing, fear of missing out. But the fact that your gear works with the latest technology without any issues from a performance, from a scalability perspective, I think again, that's good to hear it coming from your mouth as opposed to folks just assuming when they go and actually try to acquire some of this equipment.
Which I should say, we also try to support other folks as well. We're not, we, we really believe that we build the best hardware, for our customers, but we're not trying to force you to stick with us. I mean, our software works with other brand product. It's our hardware. I mean, you can technically take your drives out, put them into another solution, with software and continue going on. I mean, we're not trying to lock you in. We want to give you that flexibility. And I'll say this as well. I mean, without naming the place, but when you bring a drive into certain office centers, and it's a Mac drive, an Apple formatted drive, and you just plug it into their system, and you're able to download your file and print or email or whatever you need to do at that office center. Depending upon where you go, I don't know of any place it isn't, but these places also use our technology to support that Mac formatted drive.
I love that. Don't be humble.
We want
You can go
everybody to have the best
into you know if you
experience.
don't want to say the name, but just say don't be humble. That's amazing that you're out
I
there.
don't know if
And
I can say the names.
that's all right. I don't want to get you in trouble. I don't want to. That's all right. I do have a question here from the world's greatest moderator. So appreciate you, Mr. Cox. He says, does the new dual 8K display unit make it possible to have 3 monitors on an M1 Mini?
I'm not familiar with the new dual 8K display unit, so I can't answer that question. But I don't believe the Mac Mini. We'll see what Apple supports. Maybe 8K display on an M1, but that'll be up to right now. The limitation is more Apple than it is the hardware.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
on the M1s, I mean, it'd be an easier question to answer with a Mac Pro or an iMac, even with an eGPU box. But the M1 and the M1 Pro and M1 Max, that's all Apple's silicon on chip GPU technology. That's a brand new game, and Apple controls the vertical. They control the horizontal there.
makes sense.
Literally.
Makes sense. Yeah, I'm running Thunderbolt 4 connecting on my main display and HDMI out of that M1 Mac Mini right now. So yeah, I'm not sure. I would love to go
Well,
8K.
yeah, what a lot of people complain about now, if you have a Mac Mini, every M1 supports technically 2 displays. It's
Yes.
either, in the case of the Mac Mini, it's HDMI plus one via Thunderbolt. On the laptops and the 21st iMac, it's the built-in display plus one via Thunderbolt. And you can, with Display Link, and we'll have a Display Link solution as well that effectively tunnels the GPU over USB. But you will be able to add another display, but natively you can only connect just a single display via the Thunderbolt 4 port. I'm sorry, the Thunderbolt port, I should say, on the M1s. On the M1 Max and the M1 Pro, Apple, they call it Thunderbolt 4 for a reason on those machines, because they are meeting the minimum require. They're meeting all the requirements for Thunderbolt 4 on those systems, including the multiple display.
Got you. Got you. I want to talk a little bit. We talked a little bit about some of the drives and about some of the components. Again, like I landed back in the U.S. last night and had some items show up. So shouts out to Larry O'Connor, this guy right here, OWC, the Envoy Pro Electron.
I love that product.
External portable storage device. I could have used this in Mazatlan when I was editing video. It looks like this is going to be talk to us a little bit about what this is and why folks want to start thinking as the world opens up again. I want to focus kind of on content creators, right? Folks who are going to be
You should take
moving
it out of the
storage.
box. The box is actually, we
Well, I got to
stripped the
do an
box down. The
unboxing video.
box
I keep getting told that I need to do more unboxing videos, and I've got FedEx and UPS behind me right now. It's embarrassing.
Right on, right on. Yeah, just it's the thing is tiny, and it's incredible. I mean, actually during development, some of the early prototypes, I actually went out, you know, got in the car and ran it over a few times. I mean,
Oh, I'm not going to do that.
that is probably the most compact, one of the most compact, I'd say nicest and absolutely most rugged drives you're going to find in the market. I mean, it will just about everything. I think it didn't. The drive actually made it, but the unit did actually get some crush. Was with the steamroller on hard asphalt, not on asphalt that
And you did that
was
on
still
purpose,
warm.
right? Okay.
But I mean, that unit is, I mean, just about, it can
Wow.
probably survives being run over by a tank. Certainly, survive being run over by, how to say, some very large trucks.
Wait a minute. This is
See,
the whole thing. So what better time
that's
to
the whole
do
thing.
an unboxing than with the CEO, right? Wow. This thing is incredibly small.
It's up to 2 terabytes. It's a bit over 1,000 megs a second sustained. I mean, really fast. You can even do 4K work, on that product. It's works with anything Type C. It's also waterproof and dustproof. So for being on the road and not having to worry about the safety of your data, that drive is extremely fast. So it means you can ingest, you can copy, duplicate, backup, whatever you need to do very, very quickly.
Yeah.
And it's going to take whatever, just about whatever you throw at it,
Now let's see. USB-C
or if you throw
3.2.
it for whatever reason,
Well,
it would
I
survive
won't. Yeah,
that too.
I won't throw it under a steamroller like you did, but I'll make sure to. Now, does
Well, we
this?
wanted to see. We couldn't find anything that would actually crush it. I mean, it's pretty darn light and it's still extremely strong. But yeah, the steamroller on a hard surface was a little too much. But the way it crushed, the actual drive inside was recoverable, which I thought was still pretty slick.
Amazing. Are there different capacities that come with this? Because I've got the 1 terabyte. Are there different capacities, or can we upgrade the? Is it just the? Obviously, we can't correct the enclosure. So
Yeah, I mean, it's really built tight. I mean, you could technically, I mean, anybody who knows what they're doing can certainly get into it and replace drive. It's this on the low side. It starts at 240 gigs and goes up to 2 terabyte.
here we go.
So the 1 terabyte is kind of right in between there.
Awesome. Small,
But it's built.
waterproof.
I mean, it's a waterproof solution. There's I say it's designed to dissipate heat. That's the other thing about our drives, our SSDs, external SSDs in particular. These things don't. Number one, they have lots of runway, so they don't give you 2 seconds of high speed and then slow down. Which that's what you. I mean, there's a reason drive. There's a reason when you see a cheap SSD, why that SSD is cheap. They can advertise a really high.
Talk about
How to
that.
say
Yeah, let's talk about. Let's differentiate OWC versus. I could mention names, but I don't want to make anyone mad. But yeah, let's talk about that there.
It's really easy to have a drive that goes 1,000 megs a second or 3,000 megs a second for the first few gigabytes. All of our drives are built to provide sustained throughput at high speed throughout the capacity. Even our lower end drives, and I say lower end, our Electron 2.5 inch SSDs for the older MacBooks and PCs that have SATA. And I say lower end, I mean even those drives sustain full speed, which is over 500 megs a second, which max of the SATA bus, for 20 to 25% of their capacity. And this compares to drives that boast great speeds, but literally 1 or 2% of the drive capacity. So on a 500 gigabyte, you get to 5 or 10 gigs of any kind of ingest or copy, and they
Mm.
slow down to less than 100 megs a second. That's not how we build our product. All of our solutions are built so that you actually get the performance you need, throughout. It's not kind of this, it looked fast for a second. Why is this taking an hour now to transfer?
Yeah, it looks good on the desk, but yeah, from a functionality perspective, I'm going to tell you one thing for sure. This is going to replace any and everything else that I had in my toolkit. Just knowing that it's quality and just the size is honestly, I mean, again, from an aesthetic perspective, that right there, easy to store, easy to put into the carry-on bag and things of that nature. So this is, I can't wait to fire this up and put some data on this and see how it goes through its paces.
It's funny. A friend of mine came to me and he recommended one of our products, and I said, "I'm going to go build my own." And whatever. He came back. My friend came back. I didn't know whether the guy bought what he bought or when he bought, but he came back a couple weeks later and was talking about it. The solution his friend bought and put together, the case melted in the product. I mean, it literally melted and stopped working because of the drive.
Oops.
there's a reason we build our solutions. I mean, they dissipate heat. They're right. I mean, they're built so that they, in addition to taking outside abuse, they're going to run reliably and not melt. By the way,
My goodness.
during full load operation. And I was like, I felt bad, but I was like, yeah, well, when he explained what he bought, I said there was a reason why that enclosure was $20.
You get
Why?
what you pay for. You get what you pay for a
You
lot of
do,
times.
and we're not going to. I tell you, everything that we build, certainly, I think we're extremely cost competitive for when it comes to the quality and the solution that you're getting. We're not going to be the cheapest out there, but we're also building things so that they last. Even
Mm.
the power supplies. I'll talk about power supplies for 2 seconds. If you look at the power supply ratings, with our solutions, all of them are overpowered. When I say they're overpowered, they provide a lot more power typically than the drives inside are going to require. And the reason for that, and audio people get this, if you're doing any kind of, if you put anything under load, the closer you are to that peak, or worse, a lot of those power adapters that come with drives, when you first turn them on, they require the peak power that adapter's able to provide, just to get started. So if there's a peak power and then there's
Mm.
an ongoing or nominal output, we don't want any of our drives to require going over what's nominal, and it'd be like a stereo. The closer you get to the maximum, you never turn, well, I can't say never, but usually you don't turn a stereo up to 100% of its maximum volume.
Right.
And when you do, you hear a lot of stat. I mean, things don't sound good. You can burn out speakers, not because you're overpowering, but because of the static and the I guess you call it the interference wave that starts to happen. You get massive distortion, and the same thing kind of happens with power sources. And by having larger power supplies, there's less stress on the power supply, which increases its longevity, and there's less stress on the components inside our solution because the power is cleaner. And that's again that's just one of the parts of building something to last, as opposed to being perceived as disposable. And a lot of the cheap stuff, even where there's warranty, nobody wants to use a warranty. It's
Unfortunately,
it,
that's true. Yeah. No one ever. That's true. Yeah.
You get used to this. I mean, people I talk to, they get used to things break. It's like, no, a drive shouldn't fail after a year. And it wasn't the drive that failed, it was the enclosure that failed. And then the headache, and then, well, it's only $70 or $80. It's like, yeah, your data was on it. It's the headache, the hassle at the time. For just, I mean, a few dollars more, you'd have something that, 5 or 6 or 7 years down the road, it would still be rolling. And there is one other thing I didn't talk about in Thunderbolt 4 that I wanted to get on. There's
Sure.
one other cool Thunderbolt 4 product, or I should rather say a product with the name Thunderbolt 4, and those are Thunderbolt 4 cables.
Definitely.
Thunderbolt 4 cables are really a beautiful thing for everything that's Type C. Now, I just want to say one of the number one, the most things we get tech support calls on today has a cause, that effectively it's an issue with what Type C cable the customer is using. Apple, for example, includes a really nice Type C cable, or has. I don't know about the current. I haven't tested the M1 laptop Type Cs, but I don't believe anything's changed. And Apple's Type C cables that they include with their power adapters, very high quality, but they're for power only. When you try to use them for data, they only do USB 2 40 megabit speed, not even USB 3 speeds, because they're a power cable. They weren't intended to be used for data. But you get this really nice cable, and you assume it's going to work for everything,
Yeah.
whether it be a Type C dock, a Type C drive, or you try to use it with a Thunderbolt device. And you look at other Type C cables, even Type C cables that are data rated. There's everything that OWC offers is E-certified and truly rated. I mean, we list the specs. You can actually see the specs on the cable, which helps a lot. But there's a lot of stuff you can't identify what that Type C cable is. Even in the Thunderbolt 3 realm, you have passive and active. Active cables on Thunderbolt 3 can only support USB up to USB 2 speeds, because it's everything else is for power and just for just for Thunderbolt lanes. The passive cables will do 10 gigabit USB and everything Thunderbolt. The nice thing about Thunderbolt, and again, I'm getting a little in the weeds and getting way too much into the
No,
details.
but see, but this is that question that a lot of times, as you say, you get from a tech support perspective, and a lot of times we'll see on various social media forums people asking why their cable doesn't work. Right, they're using a USB-C cable as opposed to a Thunderbolt cable, and just the delineation of the emblem here, right, dictates what that cable will actually do. So no, I'm loving this conversation. Definitely keep going.
Cool. What gets worse? Some of the cheap, some of
It
the,
gets
I'm
worse.
sorry, some of the cheap USB-C cables. You have no idea what they are. They may actually allow for high power transmission, but they might not be rated for it. I mean, there's all
Mm,
sorts of, I would say, risks and just time wasting, I'd say, inconveniences with, how to say, depending upon what your USB-C cable situation is. But the worst thing is when somebody calls in tech support because maybe they're bringing something back and forth between multiple locations, and it's hard to assume. I say, hey, everything works great here, and then I personally, and I was like, oh my gosh, I went around with a customer, friend. I mean, there's no animosity, but went back and forth over a couple of weeks trying to figure out why our USB-C dock wasn't working with his MacBook,
hmm
his new MacBook Air. It's like, there's no I mean, we tested. There's absolutely zero reason. Well, it must be something new Apple did, and your dock's not compatible. It was kind of the back and forth, and I threw my arms up. I actually handed it over to our tech team, and they went to product development. And something the customer had mentioned was the two computers he was using it between. He was taking the dock. It wasn't the computer going back and forth. It was the dock going back and forth. As it was an error. I mean, assumption is something that
Wow.
always
Yeah,
bites you in the
yeah.
tail. But his Air was one place, his MacBook was the other place, and he was taking the dock back and forth, and he was using the cable that came with his Apple adapter. Tech support figured that out. They had all my info, and that was the only thing that they double checked. It's something I should have done, and that's with troubleshooting, you always eliminate everything work you use to
Down
get
to the
down to
smallest common
what
denominator.
is,
Yeah.
and you can't assume that that's the process that's happened before you start talking to somebody. But that's what it was. It was just the silly cable. So, and it half worked. The problem is with USB on the dock, there was enough bandwidth for things to kind of half work. If certain ports worked, certain ports didn't work, it's like, what is going on here? But if you buy a Thunderbolt 4 cable, it does not matter, what device you connect it to or from. If it has a Type C port, it will absolutely always give you 100% of the data and always up to 100 watts of power delivery. So don't even think twice. If it says Thunderbolt 4, and all of our Thunderbolt 4 cables listed at 40 gigabits, so there's no doubt of that, and also listed they're 100 watts, you know that they're 100 watt certified. So whether it's an iPad that you're charging or a Thunderbay 4 or a Flex 8 that you need to connect to your new M1 Pro, or is it Android with Type C that you're connecting up? So whatever it is, if it has a Type C port on it, that cable will always connect between the two devices and give you whatever the maximum power that's supported between the two, whichever one is obviously the limiter, and whatever bandwidth the device or the host can support. So it won't make a Thunderbolt product work on a USB-C product
Right.
or on a USB only host. I mean, it doesn't do that. But if the devices are compatible, the host and the device is compatible, that cable, whatever you're doing, charging data, etc., will give you maximum power and maximum data rate as supported between those the host and device.
That literally clears up all the mud. Right there. Right. Again, for folks, because that is a constant conversation of head scratching right there. So I'm gonna call Derek and I'm gonna tell him I'm replacing all my old cables right now with OWC Thunderbolt 4 cables.
Awesome,
I,
awesome.
I'm placing my order later on this afternoon. So let Derek know that I'm gonna be doing that. Folks, again, that really right there is one of the gems. Larry's been dropping some huge ones today. Let me ask you one another thing before we go into a couple other topics, but and it's kind of around the content creation space and what you're doing. Talk a little bit about the Fast Forward program that you have.
Certainly, we do understand there's a time when you go beyond direct attached storage, and we also look at. I mean, LTO is very expensive technology as well, and the fast forward program now makes it. It's going to be expanded to all sorts of products, but
Mm,
initially it makes your LTO drives leasable, rentable for shorter or long periods of time. It also brings accessibility to the Jellyfish and Jupiter as well, but the Jellyfish in particular, which is really high end work group collaboration for doing video production. I mean, the Jellyfish is the video team's dream, whether it's a corporate video department or again major motion picture or TV studios, etc. That makes it. There's nothing like it in the market in terms of the kind of video support it provides and the collaboration it enables. And the best part of it is you really don't need an IT team to make it work. I mean, it's designed so that we help get you started, but once you plug into it, it auto detects your Macs or PCs, and it supports Adobe Premiere, Final Cut Pro, Resolve workflows, but lets everybody connect. It works simultaneously, even on the same check out the same video. It's super powerful tool. And the fast forward program is really what you asked about. Is making these higher and more expensive products, accessible for project use as opposed to having to buy. I mean, they are expensive, and there's a
Right.
and reasonably for good reason. But if you don't need something, if you need it for 3 months, or you need it for a year, it's a lot more economical than buying the whole solution for the long haul.
And I bring it up because again, we fingers crossed, toes crossed. Everyone's starting to get back to a point where we're getting out and publishing house, development house are doing those kinds of things. So having this all inclusive hardware as a service offering, right, for creative professionals, I think is something that should definitely be looked at. And it's coming from a name we trust, folks, OWC. So take a look at this. I will make sure to include a link to Fast Forward in the show notes for sure.
Yeah, some projects need an LTO. You can rent an LTO now rather than have to buy
Yeah.
one, so you can make that delivery to discovery.
It's too easy now. You're
And
making it too easy, right? That's
that's what
I
we
can.
tried to do. I tell people this, I mean this seriously, and we want to be the boring part of it. We want to be the part that's easy. I mean, doing creative work, is I mean, all that that takes a lot of energy and a lot of focus, and you don't need the distraction of technology or having to go to an IT department when you want to get things done. And we really work to be that solution that you plug it in, you get it, we make it easy to get, you plug it in, and it does what it's supposed to do, so that you can keep all your focus on what you need to do. And that's really what we're about.
So we talked a little bit before we went live about some things that are coming down the pike, and this could be a good opportunity. I would not mind if you wanted to talk about what's coming down the pike for OWC. You said there were some things happening next week that you were in preparation for. Didn't know if you were at liberty or wanted to share some of those things that you're working on.
We're just trying to make sure that, like I already kind of let the mini stack out of the bag, the new, let's say, the STX that give you storage, and a Thunderbolt 4 dock, especially all in one. But next week, of course, is that wonderful Black Friday, period in Cyber Week. I can't say it's my favorite time of the year. It's certainly an intense time of the year, and we're always working to make sure we got a few good. We've always got great products and great deals going for folks, but nonetheless, we're working very, very hard to make sure all those items are in stock, aligned,
Doing
and
what you
available.
can.
And on the front end, I mean, we keep it. Everything looks easy and cool and normal. Everything is in stock. I got to tell you, on the back end, behind the scenes, I mean, we're going full tilt to keep everything moving in, making sure every delivery is on time. Seeing those hot drops happen, and we can keep those stock levels positive. And I will say, for folks that are waiting for the Thunderbolt 4 dock, or the Thunderbolt 3 14-port dock. Thunderbolt 4 docks, if they have one in back, those just shipped out. Everything we have was pre-sold except for a couple that very quickly were out the door.
Right.
But those got out the door last week, and another shipment will arrive just before Thanksgiving.
Awesome.
So we should go actually positive for a short period of time. Same with the Thunderbolt 14-port dock. If you need one of those, certainly I would. I mean, you can place a back order now. You can place a pre-order for the Thunderbolt 4 dock. The ETAs on those are accurate. Next week, those will be back in stock. Unfortunately for a short period of time, and then it'll be another couple of weeks. And I really look forward to 2022. Hopefully, when
you're ready to turn the page too, right?
Well, again, I kind of talked about it earlier. We have done so much to ensure we've got product flow, and then we retrained certain partners in areas where there were other gaps. I mean, we picked up the slack all over the place, but you still got to work through the lead times. So it will get better next year, and hopefully we'll see other improvements. But nonetheless, we're doing everything we can so you can get the technology you need to make your workflows better.
Awesome.
We've got a lot of great stuff. So coming to get it. The Apple TV, I think, is one of our best deals right now. We've got, if you're looking for something that's fun, something fun for home, or Apple TV actually is pretty versatile for all sorts of uses. But we've got brand new 64 gig 4K. They full Apple warranty, factory seal. They even come with the 3 months of Apple TV Plus. Kind of
Wait
cool.
a
But
minute.
we're at
Wait a minute.
129 on those compared, and that's for the 64 gig. I think that's less than the least expensive 32 gig out there. We did have the 32 gigs for a while, but those are unfortunately those are gone. But so it gets 64 gig for less than a 32 gig unit is new
Brother,
out there.
right
Not a
there.
bad deal.
I'm putting that under somebody's tree right there. Okay. I do like that. I do like that. Okay.
Yeah, we
Good to
got fun
know.
stuff like that. I mean, OWC. I mean, we make all this great stuff. Max sales. I mean, we cater and curate a pretty good product lineup in addition to our own branded products. So there's something for everybody. Have work hard, play hard, right?
That's it. And along those lines, I think I'd also be remiss if I didn't. I just, before I let you go, want to get into who Larry O'Connor is. And I know you've got a couple of things, a couple of initiatives that are near and dear to your heart. And just wondered if you could talk a little bit about those, the Kiss the Ground initiative, about your focus on clean, quality, sustainable water for everyone, and just some of the things that drive you from a passion perspective as well. I know the company does, and all of the entities around that, but some of the things that folks may not know about what you do on the side as well.
I could talk about this for an
We can
hour
go
or
another hour, right?
hours. I mean, this I could go nonstop about Kiss the Ground. We've gotten involved with charity water. We're at the core. I mean, we're about solutions. Not just things that are fluffy and sound good or look good on paper. Things that actually work well and are solutions for the real world. And really, got excited to get involved. Kiss the Ground. You can see the movie. There's a movie, I'd say, that's associated with the organization that you can watch on Netflix, called Kiss the Ground. And Kiss the Ground is actually also a charitable organization. Right now, they're doing fundraising to support Regenerate America, which is driving regenerative farming support into the 2023 U.S. Farm Bill. They've had great success in the UK and overseas with a lot of these initiatives. And even in the U.S., since the movie came out 1 year ago, we went from less than 50,000 acres to over 20 million acres,
Mm.
either being farmed or being converted into regenerative farming. And it's kind of interesting because we focus so much on the use of carbon fuels, whether it's coal or oil. And when you look at the impact that how we farm, how agriculture is done today, it's pretty insane to see that this has been a far larger impact and a much bigger issue. We can stop 100% generating carbon tomorrow, but if we don't actually sequester, we still have the same problems that we've already brought ourselves to. And the thing about Kiss the Ground, I've listened. I heard, I think a few weeks ago that somebody suggested it's going to be a multi-trillion dollar industry. And I consider this kind of dystopian, that we have giant, carbon dioxide sucking machines to remove the carbon dioxide and produce oxygen for the air. It's like, that's nuts. The best technology in the world is literally beneath our feet.
Yeah.
And it's pretty interesting when you look at the economics. Farmers have really been put in a bad position today, very input dependent. It takes, 2 to 3 times the fertilizer, on average per acre to generate the same yield as it did just a couple decades ago.
Mm.
The other aspect are the pesticides, which kill the ground. The fertilizer runoff, which is, when you see those big algae blooms are in the news that are doing the big red algae kills, off the coast. That's from fertilizer runoff. Pesticides aren't exactly great for our health, to say the least. And we
Mm-hmm.
look at cancer, all these things. We treat the symptoms and we point fingers at things. I mean, again, by no means does anybody want to see a bird or another, how to say, other wildlife on the shore covered in oil. And that's just bad optics. But it's easy to put the focus on in that area as opposed to agriculture, which between pesticides and fertilizers, separation of livestock from from the grounds. I mean, where we use a huge amount of our agriculture to feed livestock that's kept separate from, let's say, the fields and whatnot. And in fact, on top of that, most livestock wasn't designed to eat, grain and corn to begin with. It's kind of interesting, if you look at, people blame, or one of the big blames out there is on cattle and methane. And if you have, granted, I can't, the methane is something real and all, but grass fed and all grass, that's pretty much all cattle is grass fed, but grass finished where they've never been fed grains, not only are properly managed grass fed, grass finished cattle carbon negative, there's a net sequester in terms of how they interact with the ground, with the fields. I mean, simple things. I mean, I didn't know this. Grass grows tall. It sends down long roots. Those roots are sequestering carbon, which support a biome underground, which ultimately makes the soil gives nutrients into the soil. There's symbiosis with different, organisms which are providing nutrients to those grasses. When the cattle or anything comes in and eats that grass, and it cuts it short, those long roots drop, that carbon remains in the ground. And as they're rotated out, grass grows long again, more carbon sequestered. But separating, the agriculture from the livestock is a huge negative. I mean, you have dead ground where these animals, subsist while you're using pesticides and herbicides and all sorts of great stuff. The grow and energy, the transport. I mean, it's a big mess. And converting the regenerative, and this is the best part. Now you end up with healthier food that's going to be more nutritious, measurably more nutritious, not have, the impact of residual pesticides, but the farmers can actually, while maintaining the same caloric output per acre, growing the same. I mean, as far as a food density, how you may say, you're not. Modern farming does all. Modern regenerative farming is competitive in terms of output, but the farmers actually do a lot better as well. Their income per acre goes up. They aren't barely getting by like they are where they're dependent on paying the big ag companies for those inputs. It's all sorts of stuff. I mean, the ocean's another whole other big mess we could spend another a whole bunch of other time. It's we focus on the plastic.
I love it.
The plastic straw was a big focus. It's like ban the straw. It's like okay, and hey, fine, I get it. Turtle. I think all started with a turtle with a straw in its nose kind of gig, but it's such a small part of the actual problem. I mean, a success. It feels good, but the impact of banning the straw doesn't solve the much bigger problem that exists out there. There's actually another interesting. They talked about the Horizon oil spill. Some article, some research, and the amount of marine life that killed over 3 months is less than gets killed in a day, by the large commercial fishing operations. I don't remember the guys catching by line or the small boats. I mean, these giant commercial trawlers that put up nets bigger than a football field that effectively raise they raise the bottom of the ocean in addition to bringing up unintended catch, which is effectively tossed back dead, which outnumbers by a wide margin what actually gets to market. We've had this world of abundance, but there are practices that certainly are threatening the future. And another thing, if we want to get in the carbon, I'm going to stop because I
love it. I see you lighting up too, right? And I'm loving it. I love it.
I just find it interesting. The coral reefs. I mean, it's not just rising temperatures that affected the coral reefs. Some of the large scale fishing that was done close to these reefs wiped out fish populations. But the fish populations, there was nothing to fertilize and support those reefs. I mean, you basically took their food source away, whether it was the fish waste or the fish themselves. No fish population. There's nothing there keeping that reef healthy. So it's we point. It's just we point at this. I'm not. We have solar. And I will say one other thing. I am a huge proponent of solar on site. Solar on site. Wind is a little more complicated. We did wind, back in 2009. I think it was. I am happy with that choice, but that's a different scale. But solar today, for most areas, for a lot of areas, certainly in the U.S., is very efficient and very beneficial on site. These subsidized solar farms and even wind farms that are off-site. You look at Texas last year. You really won't talk about it. Nobody wants to say bad about green, but Texas has grown immensely over the last decade, and our power dependency there's not been new gas plants put in. There's not been new, nuclear is where it's at. Coal hasn't been expanded. Not saying that, coal is, a fantastic thing, but it's been solar and wind. And when we got to February earlier this year, and we had, the crazy freeze of the century,
Right.
solar,
Yeah.
there was no sun. Solar was offline and covered with snow and ice. The wind turbines hadn't been winterized; they went offline. And whereas Texas has about 25% of its power today driven by or provided by renewables, during those couple weeks, it dropped to less than 5%. And there wasn't power for people. And that was a real bad thing. On top of that, we have the Permian Basin where there's such all these things are interconnected. They canceled the Keystone Pipeline. That means there's actually more pumping happening in the Permian Basin. Also, by the way, less trucks for hauling goods because they're still hauling oil down from Canada, which is less efficient and more carbon impactful than putting it through a pipeline. But it also means there's more oil still being pumped in the Texas Permian Basin, where we don't have natural gas infrastructure for all the gas that also is kind of byproduct. I mean, it's there with the oil. And if you've ever driven through the Permian Basin through West Texas, it's insane. I mean, at night, all the flaring that goes on. I looked at it; it's 70 million cubic feet of natural gas, methane a year that's flared.
Wow.
And the reason being, there's not the infrastructure. There wasn't the capital. There wasn't the demand to support to put infrastructure in for it. It's like, well, why don't they build the damn power plant out there and just use your local? Well, the subsidies on wind and solar, which a lot of that comes from overseas. I mean, it's not manufactured here. It's not even the most efficient stuff. But the subsidies, the best analogy that was given to me, it'd be like your favorite restaurant you've been going to. They always, they're consistent. They always have great, whatever it is you like. The food is great. And then a restaurant opens up right next door, and you don't have to pay to go there. They pay you to go there. And that's kind of what's happened
Wow.
with wind and solar, subsidies. And again, I think solar on site, fantastic. Solar, where we've subsidized and basic. I mean, it's pretty. I mean, made it impossible for call it reliable power to compete. And where and you go to the Permian Basin, we're burning this gas. And when you burn methane in this way, it's 80 to 90% efficient, meaning that 10 to 20% of that methane ends up in the atmosphere.
Mm.
And Russia actually has the same thing. They flare, an estimated 200 million cubic feet a year. It's crazy, these things that go on. If you're burning in a natural gas plant, though, if you actually be collecting that and you put up a facility, it's 100% efficient. You don't have any methane
Yeah.
being released. There's there's the superficial stuff, and then there's what's really going on under. And I think it's great the direction and the improvements in renewable. And I'm a big proponent for renewable, but I think it's more. I think we still need to have that mix. You can't demonize, carbon fuels and say everything's got to be solar. That has other costs, and there's costs in manufacturing. There's costs in that we're really not talking about. The wind turbine we have, it came from overseas. It was it's a 500 kilowatt Vestas. We got it because Denmark went larger. They went 750s or 1 kilowatt or 1 megawatt, and we brought this over. We rebuilt it, and that's what that up until for a while. We've grown and we have more demand, but for a while that we were able to put out just from the wind turbine, more than the power we consume. We've added solar and such so that we could keep that. But to the point, it's that we over subsidize this one area. We've kind of it sounds good. Renewables sounds great, but when you have natural gas is very clean. Carbon dioxide, which you can sequester, if you absolutely you can absolutely sequester, I should say, on those plants, and water vapor is what you get from burning natural gas. And rather than support that, seeing those sorts of, and we have an abundance. There's literally 3,000 years supply of natural gas estimated in the Permian Basin alone. So we have these very efficient, clean, options, but nobody's building to use those because, again, it's you have to pay to go to that restaurant, but
Yeah.
over here, as long as the sun is shining, they'll pay you to
Come
walk
on
in the
in.
door.
Come on.
That's
See,
tough.
and I appreciate you going down that, right? And I brought the question up because I wanted we know the technical side, we know the bits and bytes and zeros and ones of Larry O'Connor and OWC, but I wanted to really see the the man behind the scenes, right? And kind of the values and the moral and kind of the things that you stand for as well. And I think that resonates and helps folks kind of align to who you are and what it is that you do and how you lead your organization. So I appreciate you going into that. I'm gonna get you on another show. We're going to talk about this stuff here too, man.
Well, love to. But look where OWC is located. We're in the heartland. I mean, we're
Well, yeah,
in the
you're
country,
because
and
you
definitely
started
want to.
in was it Indiana? No,
Yeah,
yeah,
Marengo, Illinois. Technically,
Illinois.
well,
That's right.
Woodstock.
It started in Illinois. Yeah,
So bottom line is, I mean, we have the opportunity to certainly leave this place, better for our kids. And look, I've gotten great enjoyment of the outdoors and everything that you know. Again, just it's here. Period. And want to make sure it's here for those that come after. Certainly, those come after me.
you're a good man. You're a good man. Appreciate that. Sir, I will include all of the links to all of the relevant OWC properties, OWC.com primarily. I will also include link to Kiss the Ground and the Netflix show as well. I've got it in my cart or in my
Fantastic.
list to watch. I thank you for your time. Happy belated birthday to you.
Thank you.
All that stuff, right? I you're a good man, Larry. I mean, and you're doing good things, and you've done good things for creatives and for technologists and folks within the industry for over 30 or so years. So, your products that you put out are phenomenal. I'm glad I opened up this drive here while you were on the screen. I'm gonna start moving data over tonight for sure. And
Good deal.
and I got this travel doc too, so I'm definitely gonna put that to use when I go to Vegas here in a few weeks
I didn't even mention that product. One of my favorite. Honestly, I mean, that goes
this right.
around the
So
world with me.
again, I was going to do an unboxing here, but I got the man on the screen, but I'll be cognizant of your time and we won't go into it. But yeah, the OWC USB-C travel dock, it's got every port on it. I don't need anything else. Card readers. It's got USB-A and USB-C, HDMI, supports up to 4K. You kidding me?
No,
You kidding me? Hold on, dude. I'm gonna make sure no one sees this. I'm gonna hide this from my kids. All right, there we go.
better.
Larry, thank you, sir. Appreciate you. Have a wonderful day. Good luck with everything. Good Black Friday. Good luck with everything with the new release of the new products and things of that nature. You heard them here first, folks. But outside of that, anything you want to say, sir, in closing?
No, just thanks for having me, James. And hey, I mean, this is why we're here. We would not be here without you and everybody out there. So, thank you for the opportunity, and we look forward to continuing to earn that trust and being your solution provider.
Thank you, sir. Be well to yourself. Take care, everyone.